What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, my guest, I have a fellow podcaster. He's also a professional wrestling manager, personality. He is Todd Eastman. I'm excited to have Todd on. This is the first time that we're actually both meeting, so it's pretty cool that we get to do it on Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I appreciate everyone for tuning in live. For those that are listening back on a podcast platform, I appreciate you too. So please do me a favor and make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Or if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the bell to stay notified, hit that little red button and tap in. And I appreciate it. But before we go any further, I got to take a quick second to thank our sponsor for this episode, and that is healthvape.com. Health Vape is your healthy vaping alternative. All of their products, no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals. They help restore your energy while giving you the vital boost you need to get through your day. And they are vitamin infused. So go and check out healthvape.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Now, it's time. Let's get into it. My conversation with Todd motherfucking Eastman. Yeah. And we're live with Todd Eastman. Todd, welcome to the show, brother. I appreciate you being on.
Oh, thanks for having me, mate.
Man, how's things going in Queensland at the moment?
It is hot as fuck, to be honest with you. So if you can hear something, it's probably a fan going because it was like 35 degrees today. So,
man, you know what? You're lucky though, because like our weather here in Sydney is like fucking bipolar. It is like pissing down raining for 1 minute, and then next thing you know, it's sunny and 30. So, you know,
see, we have that here, but we've got the humidity as well. So when the rain stops, it is just like when you're walking outside, you feel like you're walking through stuff. Like that's how thick the air is. It's a pain in the, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like even like in Queensland, it's like the heat and temperature wise, it's like when you go to somewhere like Thailand and stuff like that. It's a different kind of heat than you used to, like that I'm used to being from Sydney, like that real sort of like mugginess to a certain thing. I love Queensland, but like when it gets that really muggy weather, fuck man, just take me to air conditioning.
Yeah, well, I was from Adelaide, so when we moved up here, I was just like, ugh. I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is shit.
How long you been in Queensland?
Actually, my wife just said 7 years coming up. 7 years this month.
Yeah, so, right. What made you decide to go Queensland?
It was a work. Like my wife got a transfer for work, and then they were just like they liked her so much. They're like, we'll give your husband a job as well if he wants to come up as well. And I hated my job at the time. So I'm like, yeah, let me get the fuck out of this job.
So it sounded like it was a good thing for getting into it, man.
Pretty much, yeah.
We got a few people in here. We got Bobby Bishop, Lachlan Albright tuning in as well. But, you know, as far as like the wrestling side of things, when did you like start getting involved in that? Like, was it the podcast that started first for you, or like, how did you get involved in this?
No, I started training at Riot City Wrestling, and I was a trainee to be a wrestler, and started really late, so I was pretty old, and I just kept getting injured all the time. Yeah. So I was just like, I wish I could do this because I can do it. I just keep hurting. My body is just old. So it was just at the time, while I was still training to be a wrestler, they had me on doing commentary with the guy that would become my podcast partner, Josh Armour. So I was like the trainee that was in the commentary booth with the voice of Riot City Wrestling to give his perspective as a trainee, what's going on in the ring sort of deal. And eventually it would graduate to me becoming a wrestler. So being that never was going to happen in the end, they were just like, well, why don't you become a manager? This is after a fair while. So why don't you become a manager? Because like naturally I'm a smart ass. Naturally I'm a shit stirrer. And so when I had to play the babyface good guy all the time, it was really hard for me because I'm naturally just giving people shit. It's just part of me. So and then it sort of graduated into that. And but during doing all of that is when the podcast started, because Josh started with a group called Wrestle Hustle Radio.
Yeah. And
I think we did one or two, and like he did a podcast there and was just like, it was his podcast, and then he was like, I want another voice on there, so can you come on and do something? I was like, what do you want me to do? And he was just, well, do you want to do something like just you always have opinions, just speak your mind, do a 3 or 4 minute thing. And that was it. So basically at the time, it wasn't long after Jim Cornette had done that. You know, he's doing those stuff on Raw when he was just, doing his, basically that. So that was basically what I was going to do with stuff I didn't like about wrestling. And we just called it Views from the East.
Yeah, that's cool as shit.
Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And it lasted like 2 episodes. And then he was just like, nah, screw this. Just come on the show all the time. And so I was just the co-host. And then we did Wrestle Hustle, and it's sort of like the two of us sort of outgrew it. It was like, we want to do more. We were sort of like, we were directed where we were supposed to go, like who we were interviewing and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. And
we're just like, well, we want to do our own thing. So we just sort of broke away from it. I was like, well, what do you want to call it? And I was like, well, no one really knows what podcasts are. So we might as well just say Wrestle Radio Australia. Because that at least people will know it's basically a radio show. It's just on the computer, because that's how you had to explain podcasts to people back then. Because that was 9 years ago.
Wow!
So it's just like
that's kind of like almost like the infancy of podcasting. Really, is like 9-10 years ago.
Yeah, well, before us, all there really was, like Australian wrestling wise, was something called the DCW Comedy Hour. That was like Mikey J. I think Fresh was on there, Gino, and I'm blanking on his name, and that really sucks because he only just left us.
Bass.
Bass, thank you. Oh, I feel so bad for that because he's a lovely guy. They were doing that, but it wasn't really Australian wrestling. It was just them just pulling the piss out of everybody.
Yeah.
And then Conco had done a few, but nothing seriously. So then we just started up doing it. And it was just like, our thing was we were going to cover everything around Australia. And then like also we'll start talking like WWE, TNA, because that might get people to start listening. And then we can go, hey, we wrestle in Australia as well. This is what's going on around the country. And so we had like correspondence and all of that sort of thing. But eventually it just grew into the WWE TNA thing was getting smaller and smaller, and the interviews were getting bigger and bigger to the point where let's stop talking about WWE for a while. Let's just talk about Australia. It's Wrestle Radio Australia. Let's talk about Australian wrestling. And that's basically where we were for the longest time.
Did you always do it as like I hate the word shoot interview because I feel like shoot interview kind of reminds me of like those old school like camcorder interviews where it's like the interviewer just like asking a question, but like were you always doing it like in shoot with the performers, or would you do like worked interviews as well?
It was pretty much always shoot because that's the stuff I was interested in. I wasn't interested in the like if I want to see all the kayfabe stuff, I'll watch the shows. I want to know like being a wrestling geek, I want to know the backstage stuff.
Yeah.
I want to know, do you know what? Yeah. It's just, it was like, there were some guys that like you would interview them and you could tell they were kayfabing.
Yeah,
And I was just
yeah.
like, this sucks, but I'm going to keep going because I like the guy. Then at the end, you're like, what was that, dude? But
But when they
was
start
that?
working, like, do you get frustrated with that and being like, "Fuck, like, let's roll with it"?
I used to get very frustrated. Josh was the one with like, you could, if you ever listen to the old episodes, you can tell because I sort of just check out, and Josh takes the wheel because like in the back of my mind, if Josh had seen me, I would be like this. This is fucking bullshit. I'm not fucking watching this. I know, I know you're not really fucking related, you know, that sort of thing. But it was the way I sort of explained it to guys that were coming on, because we had to explain, hey, what podcast was if they weren't really into them. It was just like, well, look, if they're finding or if they're listening to a Australian wrestling podcast, they're obviously really, really hardcore Australian wrestling fans or really hardcore wrestling fans. So they kind of know what the score is. So we might as well just be honest about a lot of the stuff.
100%.
So that's basically what it's been. And pretty much everyone has been really cool with it. Just been, let's just have a chat. Because that's basically all it is. It's just a chat. We're just happen to be talking about wrestling and trying to get the person who we're talking about, their name out there, if their name isn't already huge, like a Robbie or a Bonza or something like that. But if it's the younger guys that are like, hey, this guy is really, really good, you guys should try and check him out.
And that's what I like about your show and my show is it's very similar. It's almost like it's breaking down that fourth wall and having like a honest conversation with someone where like their fans can see the other side of them besides the character that they portray on their screen or in front of them.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, if they meet me on a show, I pretty much don't break character when I'm on a show. So this is like the podcast Todd is a totally different to on show Todd. It's totally different to at home Todd. They're like three different people. Like the podcast Todd and the home Todd are closer, but the Todd on shows is completely different. A completely different animal whatsoever.
But do you feel like when you heel out like on a show, like has that affected the podcast at all? Like have you had comments from people that just like don't get wrestling, but they see you as like this like smart ass fucking like heelish motherfucker on a show, and then they go on your podcast and they start putting comments like fuck you, Todd, or something like that?
I mean, you would like. It was funny. We had one of the guys that used to be. His name's Ed. He used to be like the first aid guy at Venom Pro Wrestling. It was one of the feds I work. Yeah. He was just like, he explained to me. He goes, I love Todd that comes to the shows. I love Todd that's on the podcast. I fucking hate Todd in the wrestling show. And like, I think a lot of the people can like compartmentalize those three people or those two people really. So I think it kind of works. Like no one's really ever like, some of them are just like, I didn't realize you weren't always a prick, except for like Lachlan, who will probably say soon, no, he's always a prick. So
but it's funny because like a lot of like the wrestling fans, like I was at the Roundhouse show last Friday that PWA put on, and I was talking to a wrestler, and he's told me in the past, he's like, yeah, when fans come up to me, I just stay in character and I just like I heel out to them. So like me and him are standing there having a conversation, and a couple of these fans just walk up and he just like completely stone faced and then just looks at this like fan, sticks his finger up and then like knocks his hat off and walks off, and I'm just like, and then like he's come and grabbed me 5 minutes later. He's like, oh, sorry about that. Anyway, let's continue this conversation. Like that didn't just happen. And I'm like,
yeah.
Like
I used to be a lot more strict. Like with adults, I'll very much stay in. But if it's a little kid, I'm getting older, I guess, and I'm just getting a bit more softer. If it's a little kid, I'm kind of nice to them, unless you can tell some kids want you to heel out on them.
Yeah, yeah.
But otherwise, if it's a little kid, I'll be nice. I'll sign the autograph. I'll take the photo if they want. I'll pull a face while I'm taking the photo. But
but I think as well, like a lot of adults that go to wrestling shows, it's like to have that escape from their like normal 9-to-5 life, or you know what I mean, like their family commitments or the shit that they got going on in their life. So when I think that like people do stay in character in those moments for them, it really gives them that sort of distraction continuing from not just the show but also the after interaction, etc., stuff like that.
Yeah, and it also depends on how, or sort of differs on how they approach you.
Yeah,
like, because sometimes if they approach you and just go, oh, look, I really enjoy your work, then you can just go, thanks. No extra comments, no fuck off and all that sort of stuff. Just like, thanks, and then walk off. You can still be an asshole, but still be nice, if that makes sense.
100%.
There are some come up and just go, you cheated. It's not cheating unless you get caught, love, and I haven't been caught yet.
That's just that's just being blunt and direct to people as well, though, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's just about measuring who it is that's coming up to talk to you. Like I said, little kids, unless they start, I'll be nice. I can't help myself. I feel bad if I because there was ages ago, we were at a show and this guy came up. This is when I was managing Jake Nova. This guy came up and wanted us to record videos for it was his daughter's birthday.
Yeah.
And so, like, she said, oh, can you guys record videos for that? So Jake did a video, and Jake's generally a nice guy when he's not on a show. I was basically his heat anyway. So Jake does a really nice one, and blah, blah, and he's just gone, oh, thanks. She really likes you, Jake. She hates you, Todd. Like that. And this is just before they're about to record. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay. So he hits record, and I just go, I'll say her name's Jenny. I said, Jenny, I'm supposed to give you a happy birthday, but I don't. I don't wish you a happy birthday. I hope you have a bad birthday. I hope your dog dies.
Oh,
I hope the worst thing happens. Yeah. And we finished recording, and I'm like, is that okay? Is she going to be mad about that? And he goes, no, she'll love it. He goes, funny thing is, though, a dog did die last week. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, that's so fucked.
I was like, do you want me to re-record? He's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Oh, that's rough. But I think like it depends on the person though. Like a person could see, you know, I think a lot of people have a dark sense of humor, so they can see the funny side of something like that. But like, I think it just depends how sensitive the person is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I hope this girl wasn't too sensitive. Otherwise, I could have put her in for therapy for a while.
Exactly. She's just sitting there. And then he said, he hoped my dog died. And the dog died.
The dog actually died. He knew somehow. I think he killed it.
Wow. That's getting some mega heat, being able to, like, you know, mentally kill someone's dog. But, you know, as far as like, you know, that goes though, like it's funny how you see like people like MJF, it's like have kids come up and get photos and he just like flips them off like that. It's like, I don't know, like, do you think like with some people it's like, yeah, I'm a heel, so I always stay in character. It makes me wonder if it's like that's their reason just to be a dick, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Sometimes I mean, I suppose that's the bonus about being a heel. If you want to, and you're not really in the mood, you can act like a dick and you get away with it because, well, he's just being in character. No, I'm just in a bad mood. You're copying it right now.
I'm not healing out on you. I'm actually telling you.
I'm just really annoyed, and please fuck off. I've had a bad night.
Oh man, that's fucking yeah. I can see the point, you know, on that as well. Like, but again, I think fans kind of, as I said before, kind of expected it from certain performers. And I think that's part of their enjoyment of it. They get to go and, you know, tell someone to fuck off, and this person tells them to fuck right off back. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. But
yeah, stuff like if you said that to someone in the street, you might be into a fight. But you can go to a wrestling show and tell a heel to fuck off, and they'll tell you fuck off right back. Nothing's going to happen. No one's going to jump into the crowd and start brawling. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but I've had a few try to come at me, but they haven't actually happened yet. But it's a release for them, I guess.
100%.
And that's fine. Pay your money. Come and swear at me. I don't care.
It's funny. I saw a clip of like this woman who, like, this female wrestler came out, or she was a valet or something like that, and she got in the face of this fan. And as she turned it back, the fan just got up and started wailing on the wrestler, like beating the living fuck out of this woman. The male wrestlers come over, tried to break it up. The woman's partners come over, clean knocked out the male wrestler. And I was like, these two people from the crowd just came in and knocked out two talent. And I'm just like, fuck. Where would a show go from that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's like, you should never, unless the person from the crowd throws first, you should never, like, that's the one barrier that shouldn't. You can yell at someone, you can like knock the hat off, don't touch them. Do you know what I mean? I would never. That's true. It's not the worst thing I've said to a fan. Yeah, I've
Larry Emder haircut.
Yes. Because he did. He had game show host haircut.
Oh wow.
Actually, no. If you recall, Lachlan, the first thing I said to you is, "Are you being filmed in widescreen, or I can't tell right now?"
Oh wow, that's rough.
So that's like that. And there are some. I mean, there are some fans that do like cross the line sometimes. At Riot City, I had a half a can of Coke thrown at the back of my head. And
fuck.
I didn't see it because I was. You go, what the fuck just hit me?
But are you
That's
like
pretty much
fired up in shock at that point, like going, "Who the fuck threw that? What's going on?" Or we like...
well, as soon as it hit me, I sold it because I'm just like, I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was somebody I just didn't know. And I've sort of looked up from them because I was ringside, of course. I was like on the apron like that. I looked up and I just saw the can of Coke rolling, and like I quickly snapped out of it because I was supposed to be getting ready for a spot, and Chris Basso was just like, "Todd, now." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay." And it wasn't really until like a couple of the people that were like security and all that saw what happened, but I didn't really know what happened until we got to the back and they said, you all right? Like she threw that at you full pelt. And I'm like, what was it? And it was a half a can of Coke. And then when we went back to one of the guys' houses and we watched the show, you could see it as clear as day. It just goes right off the back of my head and lands in the ring.
Did she get kicked out?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think she got kicked out.
I mean, there's a certain thing, you know, you can go to a show, as you said before, you can yell, you can scream, you know, keep it obviously respectful. You don't want to cross any lines, but it's like,
no,
you know, for the most part, you can go there and call, you know, tell a heel that to fuck off or call him a piece of shit, whatever. That's fine. That's cool. That's encouraged. But I think, you know, spitting, putting your hands on talent, threatening them, or again saying inappropriate comments which, you know, are just not wanted at Australian wrestling shows or any Australian wrestling show worth its weight, you know, in tickets. But it's like, I think for the most part, fans can come, enjoy the show, just keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I must admit, that is one of the funniest things because like generally on a show, I'll play a pussy. Like if anyone, I'll be all mouthy, and as soon as the wrestler confronts me, I'll back away and I'm really sorry. And I think fans take that as like, he must always be like that. So I see all these like skinny, like 55 kilo guys, 40 kilo guys threatening to kick my ass and jump over the rail. I'm like, please do. I'm nearly 120 kilos. And I'm like, you're not going to have a fun time if you do it, but have a go, mate.
100%. It's funny. I did ring announcing at this show, and it was literally the day before lockdown, like last year. So New South Wales went into lockdown the following day. So COVID numbers were crazy. So the show finished, and you know, we're all backstage, and we hear something happening, and it was like this woman was yelling at the photographer. So basically, what this woman did, brought her children over, stood them up on the ring to get a photo. And the photographer said, "Hey, look, you know, the wrestlers have been in and out of the ring. It's in the middle of a pandemic. It's probably not wise that you touch the ring. Like, can you please get your children off?" This woman starts abusing the thing. Promoter goes to me, "Piers, can you go out there and sort it out?" I'm like, sure. So I go out there. I'm trying to turn on the charm. "Hey, listen, you just need to chill out, blah, blah, blah." Like, "Hey, what's going on? You know, this is the thing." She's like, "We paid our money." And I said, "Yeah, you paid your money to see a great wrestling show and you got your money's worth. Okay. Blah, blah. But why can't we get in the ring?" And I said, "Well, if you went to a Broadway play, would you get up on the stage after the show? No, you wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. And the husband comes over and goes, I've been wanting to smack you out all night, you little smarmy prick. And I'm like, I'm the fucking ring announcer, dude. Like, what? And I'm just, I look at this guy and he's got his 3 kids standing behind him. Like, you know what I mean? The guy had obviously been drinking. And I just looked at him. I was like, dude, those are your kids, right? And he goes, don't point at my kids. I said, do you really want to get into a physical altercation with another man that you don't know my background or history? I don't know your background or history either, but I'm not willing to get into a physical altercation with you in front of your own children, bro. Like, come on. And then eventually it sort of all sort of dispersed. But I was just like, man, the ball's on some people.
Yeah, that like fans should never go near the ring. They just shouldn't. It's just a rule. And for some of us, like, it gets us mad when people do it. It's like disrespecting the whole thing, the whole matter sacred thing. It's kind of true. I mean, that's the way. That's why any wrestler worth his salt will wipe their feet before they get in the ring, because they respect it. And to see people that haven't worked for it, you're always supposed to earn your way into that ring. And that's why we get mad sometimes when guys jump up on them. We don't want that. Get off our work spot. Yeah. I don't come to Macca's and try and cook the fries. I wait to the side until they're ready. So don't you come into my work.
You're 100% right. And I don't know what it is about pro wrestling that fans think that they can just have this free reign of whatever they like. Like, I get it with kids. Like, sometimes kids will go and be like, oh, touch the ring or grab a rope or something like that. And it's like, that's cool, because that's like maybe their first experience seeing a pro wrestling ring. They've watched it for as long as they can remember. Now they get to actually see it and experience it. I took my son, who's 6, to his first wrestling show, the one I was working on. And the whole time he saw the ring, he was just like staring at it, enamored with it. And at the end of the show, when everyone left, he was able to get in the ring, and he was just like, not goofing around. He was just looking around, looking at the ring and just being like, wow. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that was enough for him. He was like, I'm good. Like, let's go.
I was in my 30s when I did the tryout at Riot City Wrestling. Yeah. And it was just like, it was the same. It was like, well, I grabbed the ropes. I got to go inside to do some rolls. I'm like, if I don't get in, I can at least say I was in a wrestling ring once. Yeah. It's basically, that's because I love wrestling. I love wrestling. I've loved it since I was like 12. It's just like, it's something where, like, some people love fishing and some people love golf. Like, I love wrestling. I love everything about it. And I don't think there'll ever be a time in my life where I don't want to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
So
same. Like,
that's why.
Like, since you've been involved in it, like, can you still sit there and put on like WWE, AEW, or whatever kind of show, and still sit there and enjoy it as like from a fan's perspective? Or are you just like, oh, they fucked that spot up, or that, hey, that was a really cool spot. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that was a cool promo. Like, can you sort of like disconnect that from your brain and enjoy it as a fan?
I have a very critical mind, especially like because of where I sort of moved into in the business, like booking and all of that sort of stuff. It is very hard for me now. I have to, like, if I'm watching stuff, I'm breaking it down usually, or I'm going, well, that's good, I'll steal that, or that was all right. Well, I should suggest that for this guy, or something like that. It has to be a really, really good match for me to lose that.
Yeah.
So something like watching Omega Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I lost it. I was a wrestling fan for that 45 minutes that match was on. I was a wrestling fan because they put on a great fucking show. But it's like, it's harder to watch it like that, but still, like, I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because when someone does something very good, I'm like, that's very good. Like MJF promos, that's a very good promo. He's very, very good. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, it's a different type of enjoyment, but it's something because I've been behind the curtain now, so I know how the cake's made.
Yeah,
and
100%.
You made a very fucking good cake. Do you know what I mean?
I'm the same way in a lot of ways. Like I'll sit there and I'll watch things. Like I find like if it's a really good match, I'll get lost in the match. Where it's like I was watching, I was reviewing NXT a while back, and I was watching this match. It was Cameron Grimes versus Santos Escobar, and then I was like supposed to be taking notes about this match, and I'm like watching it, just going, fuck, man, this match is really fucking good. Like I'm just getting lost in the moment. It's not just spot, spot, spot. Okay, now your turn, spot, spot, spot. Like the storytelling really made a lot of sense. And these guys put on a fantastic match. And I was just like, oh fuck. All right, yeah, notes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, see, recently for me it was Gunther and Sheamus. Their matches. Because their matches were like, that could be real. The way that they didn't hold back. They worked snug. They worked stiff. It was great. I'm like, that's at the end of it. I'm like, that's wrestling. It's supposed to look like a fight.
Yeah,
and be safe. Like those guys were completely safe, but it looked dangerous. If that makes sense.
It looks snug and stiff. Like I thought the same when Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. Like I thought those matches, because those guys are so close, and as they say, you hit your brothers the hardest. And these guys just went out there and just beat the living breaks off each other. And I think that there's something about seeing massive human beings just go in there and just like belt the living fucking daylights out of each other, which is appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. It's why people like UFC. It's why people like boxing. It's the whole thing. If you could have UFC with like actual personalities and there's an actual real beef going into that match. I mean, the UFC fights that sold the most are the ones where people are like, these guys really fucking hate each other. Like Aldo and McGregor. They really hate each other. They want to kick each other's ass. I'll pay $60 to see that. That's basically wrestling right there, except we already know what's going to happen at the end of the match and where it's going afterwards. That is the only difference.
I actually thought that fight could have been fixed.
I don't think Aldo would ever have done that. Not that quickly anyway.
You know what? Because it was like, that was my first reaction where I was like, that's got to be fixed. But then it's like, you look back at what the build up to that fight and how much like intensity he had in him. He just like lost all composure going into it. I don't think it was a fixed fight, but I think he just lost all composure and just lost all common sense.
Yeah, McGregor played a smart mental game and put him off. And threw him off completely to the fact where he just wasn't guarding the way he normally wanted to guard because he just wanted to kick McGregor's ass and McGregor took full advantage of it. That's why you can't do that with the Diaz boys because half the time they're so stoned they don't know what you're doing. They're just like, I'm just going to do what I normally do. And that's what threw like McGregor's like, shit, they're not falling for it. They're angry, but they just don't care anyway.
But that's the thing, like the Diaz brothers get like so in the way where it's like, yeah, I don't give a fuck, whatever. Like I saw this clip of Joe Rogan talking about like they did a press conference and it was like on Zoom or something. This is like goes back 10 years ago. And like Rogan saying, you see like Nick Diaz sitting there. He's like, yeah, whatever. And he goes, you see him lean off camera and you hear, and he goes, and then Diaz is sitting there. He goes, he stands up, takes his shirt off and starts doing nunchucks and then comes back over. He's like, yeah, man, I ain't no bitch, motherfucker. Like, what's up? What's up? It was the most random thing you will ever see. And then he'd go back to just doing nunchucks in the background.
Yeah, that's that's the Diaz boys. But I mean, like, it's like conflict sells tickets. Like
100%.
People, real perceived conflict. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can cut a promo that makes people think, oh, those guys really don't like each other, even though like they know it's what the deal is, but backstage I reckon they don't like each other. So something might happen in this match. They might get a little bit real.
I think that those are the promos where they almost break down like that fourth wall almost, like when you saw it with Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle. I was like, oh yeah, your wife and kids left you after, that just happening. You see certain things. Even like, remember, this happened a while back. Remember Paige and Charlotte? And I think Paige said something about a Reed Flair just passed away. I was like, yeah, you're doing it or something. She said something
Yeah.
regarding her brother. I was like, even Ric Flair was like, no one contacted me and asked me for that. And he was pissed. He was disrespected. I heard in interviews saying I really disrespected him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, as long as the way I say, if anyone says anything about me in a promo, it's a promo. I don't give a shit. Same way, like I feel like I can say anything about my opponent or the guys who I manage, their opponents, and they should know I'm just talking the fight up. I'm just trying to sell tickets here, and if I can do it in a convincing manner, where they think these smart asses are really like they're up themselves, I want to see them get their asses kicked, then I've done my job. If I've made a smart ass remark about someone, that's usually because I'm going to get my ass kicked later. So I'm going to get a shot in at least. I'm going to get a little bit of my shine before I get beaten, because at the end of the day, that's what my job is.
100%. Like, I think that like the job as a manager is, always to be like, I think the best managers are heels, and the best managers always know to be a chicken shit. Like even Paul Bearer, who was like the Undertaker in this spooky type of character, he'd always be in situations like he'd look like he's about to shit himself whenever he was in a physical confrontation or going to be. But I think that that's always the part of a good manager, is being able to, be able to be cool with being embarrassed in front of people, but also being cool to understand that that you're going to have to look like a coward at times.
Yeah, like it's totally like I'm gonna get like I want these people to hate me just enough that all you have to do is touch me, and they're going to explode, and we didn't have to do bugger all to do it.
Yeah. Have you ever had like a worker get upset with something you said in a promo?
If they haven't said anything, because I think they know the deal.
Yeah.
Especially with me, because I'm pretty like straightforward with people, and most of the guys that we work with, like we're friends, so they know that I wouldn't. And if I have said anything to offend them, and they came up to me and said, "Look, man, that was out of line," like I'm really sorry. Most times, I'll show the people the promo beforehand, and like, is this all right? If it's not all right, I won't do it. I can find something else to be an asshole about. Yeah. But they're like, no, that's fine. That's good. That's like, thanks for asking me, but whatever you say is fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think most people in the business are fine unless you go on a really personal level, like, and you cross a line. But like,
yeah, and if you haven't cleared it with somebody, or if you with most people, you know what their parameters are. You know what you like. You're not going to talk about someone's dead dad, or you're not going to talk about someone's dead mom. You're not going to. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of things you can do. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I think there's a lot of ways to get heat. And I feel like in 2022, even for heels, it's like, we had, the speaking out movement a couple of years back, the Me Too movement. And I feel like heels now have to work harder to get certain amount of heat. You know what I mean? Like, because they can't rely on certain cheap heat sort of stuff. Like, you can go out there and be misogynistic and stuff like that, but I don't really think that I don't know. I don't feel like that's real. I don't know if it's still there in wrestling. I'm sure some promotions still do stuff like that, but I feel like now heels are probably more timid to probably stay away from doing stuff like that, or stuff that's like on the cusp.
Yeah, and like to be honest, I think that's bullshit. I really hate that shit. Like I saw the other night, I think it was Charlie Evans put up a tweet was saying something like sexism or something in wrestling is just cheap heat, and you shouldn't have to do it. You shouldn't have like, you're a character. If your character is sexist and he gets shown up at the end by a female wrestler, you've just proven that the character is wrong. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with being able to show people? Because if like, I know that a lot of people can't work out sometimes. Wrestling is a very, very weird thing where everybody wants you to be real, but they want you to put on a show. So which one is it? Like, I'm not allowed to go out there and be like, if we were to face a woman back in the day, like I think Chris Basso and I had a thing where we were in a sort of a feud with Adam Brooks and Kellyanne. And we'd made some off-color stuff about him and like who wears the pants and all this sort of junk. And I don't think you could get away with it today, which is sad because like it was all setting it up because we were going to get our asses kicked in the end to prove that like Kellyanne is just as good a wrestler as all the guys, because she is. I know it. The fans know it. But me saying and Cree saying all this stuff makes the fans angry, wants to see us get our asses kicked. We get our asses kicked. Everyone go home happy.
But do you think like they could do stuff which, like, say for example, you have a heel character that could insinuate something? Like, let me say, like, put it to you like this, right? Say for example, you've got a wrestler who's part of the LGBTQI plus community versus, you know, a homophobic character. This homophobic character doesn't necessarily have to come out and say homophobic things, but insinuate it. People like you, I don't like. You know what I mean? But keeping it sort of less direct and stuff like that. But then the whole payoff could be these two could have a feud, and at the end of it, the heel sees the error of his ways and they become tag partners and start a tag team. Or the heel realizes the reason why he was being so mean is because he's secretly part of the LGBTQI community. And this, you know what I mean? Now they can sort of, it could be a feel-good story at the end of it, but I feel like wrestling fans, I think like people in society wouldn't wait for that payoff of the ending of it. They would be like, rah, 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 and they would just crucify it.
Yeah, they wouldn't at all. And that's just the thing. It's just it's almost like the way fans treat wrestling as a whole nowadays. They don't wait for the payoff. They just attack straight away. Just attack straight away. Do you know what I mean? This has been happening for a while, because I remember back, it was probably about 2018. There was two guys that were in a feud, and it was like I don't want to say the names because I don't want to call anyone out or anything like that. I don't know. And it was just like the wrestler, one of the wrestlers had a wife, and it was agreed that she would get brought into the feud because it was a good way, like the way they felt it was a good way to get heat. Yeah. So they were in an I Quit match, and the heel had handcuffed the babyface to the ring post, grabbed a chair and grabbed his wife, like the guy's wife, and just said like if you don't blah blah blah, if you don't say I quit, I'm going to hit her with this chair. And he was like, no, you won't do it. And then he made an off-color remark about what his wife's vagina tastes like. And then the guy, that visceral heat right there. You want this guy to get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
And then swung and hit the girl with the chair anyway. To which the wrestler straight away was like, I quit, because his wife was obviously knocked out and they wanted to
100%.
Yeah, the amount of messages and complaints we got about that angle it was about a good 10 to 20 messages in the Federation's inbox about A, domestic violence, B, sexual blah, 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 that sort of stuff. Whereas, like, if they'd have let it unfold, that guy was about to get a monumental ass kicking by both him and the wife because of what he'd done and been shown to be like the error of your ways, because you're going to get an absolute ass kicking from these two people now.
And that's what wrestling is.
But fans didn't want that to unfold, because they were just like, no, this was wrong now. You stop this now or we will boycott this.
But that's the thing, like, you know, it's by pushing the limits to that, you know, the off-color vagina remark, that's, you know, I don't know.
It's cheap, but it was an R18 show too.
Look, if it's over 18 show, you know what I mean? Like, that's fine. If it's promoted as over 18 show, if you got kids there, different story. But again, I think if
there was kids there and he'd have said that, I would have tore him a new arsehole when he got to the back.
Oh, 100%.
But it was an R18 show. So it was like, it's like, if you want us to tell stories, allow us to tell stories. Allow, like, say somebody to come out and say they don't like intergender wrestling, and have a woman come up and constantly like challenge this guy. No, I don't fight girls. Why would I fight a girl? I'm superior. I'm a man. I'm obviously superior to you. There is no way I'm going to fight you until there's some way where, say, there's like a rumble or something. and those two happen to meet and face off.
Mm.
Because what are you going to do in a Rumble? Is he going to eliminate himself? No, he's not.
Exactly.
So,
I feel Impact Wrestling really did that, like the intergender match really, really well between Sami Callihan and Tessa Blanchard. Like, I feel like that feud, they did that fucking brilliantly. And I think
exactly.
Impact does do a lot of stuff brilliantly, but I feel like that is probably one of the best things that they've done in the last 5 years, easily.
Yeah. Well, like in Australia, PWA sort of lead the way in intergender wrestling. And why wouldn't you when you've got someone as good as Jess Troy in your ranks? Like, she is, in my opinion, she is one of the top 3 wrestlers in the country at the moment. And for me, the way I have, like, our shows at Wide Bay and stuff like that, I don't mind intergender wrestling because we're just wrestlers. The thing I was taught in Riot City Wrestling coming up, there's no guys, there's no girls, you're just wrestlers.
Yeah.
And it took a while for me to work that through my own brain when we're at training and you're running at someone, like running at a girl full steam to clothesline her into the corner. But when you're doing it and you're running towards like Demi Bennett, Rhea Ripley, and you don't really hit her as hard as what you know you can, and she knows you can, and then she calls you a pussy afterwards, you kind of get over that after a while and go, I'm just going to hit her now. This chick's not going to show me up to me, especially when she hits me harder than I can hit her. It's sort of like,
but that's the same way in, like, you know, combat sports as well. Like, I remember like 10 years ago when I was training, I was training MMA, and we were doing a boxing session and Muay Thai session, sorry. And I was partnered up to spar one of this female fighter. And the whole time I was like not even throwing a punch. She's just throwing it. I'm just like blocking, you know, deflecting, whatever. And then the coach came up to me and said, come here. Why aren't you throwing a punch? And I was like, well, it's a girl. He's like, once you come on the mats or get in the ring, that she's a fighter. You're a fighter. You're here to train. Hit her like you would spar her, like you would spar anyone else. And she was saying to me, she's like, hit me back. Like, it's okay. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, it took, but I think you're probably around the similar sort of age as me, give or take a year or two here and there. But like, how I was brought up is boys don't hit girls. You don't raise your hand to a lady. You know what I mean? Like, that was always what we were instilled as kids growing up in that time.
Very much so. And women are to be protected, like, from, like, if you see something happening and like somebody is hurting a girl, you go and help them. You don't just let it go. You help them. That's just the way I was brought up back in the day. But if you're in a wrestling thing, they're wrestlers. If you don't go out there and do what you can do to the best of your ability, you're insulting that person. You're insulting not only that, you're insulting the crowd.
100%. And I think
because they've paid to see it.
But you can tell a good story. And I always say like this, when someone says to me, intergender wrestling is not believable, I went Rey Mysterio beating Kane, Big Show, you know what I mean? Batista, you know, his entire main event run, right, is unbelievable. Why would he be the world heavyweight champion? How?
Yeah.
How does he beat these giants? It's impossible.
It is 100% the way the match is planned, the way the match is done. It's like, you're not going to go out, like, Jess Troy isn't going to go out there and throw like Matt Rogers with a body slam.
No.
Or like a delayed suplex, because it doesn't, you can't, you know what I mean? It's just in your head, you can't compute that. She could probably do it at training. They could probably do all of that stuff at training. But sensible booking, sensible like planning of a match would be like, you're not going to do that, because it just wouldn't. It's same as, like, I know I've had this argument with people in the past too. There's only one thing I don't like in intergender wrestling, and that is when a guy punches a girl in the face. That's the one thing that I'm just like, oh, I don't like that. There's something viscerally off-putting for me. You can throw a forearm, all of that, like a chop, go for it. The punch thing is just a little too I don't know what it is. And maybe that's just me being an old man. I don't know, but I just know that like anytime I've watched wrestling and there's been an intergender match, if a guy throws a punch at a girl and he hits him, that the crowd pops, and it's not necessarily in the best way.
Yeah,
like I think they did it. They might have even done it last weekend at PWA with Cherry.
yes,
Where he punched her once in the face, and the crowd reacted to that, didn't they?
yeah. Like it was an interesting reaction because like it's definitely not uncommon to see like strikes being thrown like in any wrestling match, even intergender wrestling matches. But like I feel like for the most part is like if you can make anything believable in professional wrestling if you're creative enough. But like I feel like, you know, there's certain things where it's like, you know, even when you see like as I mentioned before, like a Rey Mysterio, but if I see a smaller talent or a bigger talent, like say someone who's like 6'3" or 6'2", bumping over everywhere in the ring for someone who's like 5'5", I'm like, man, you're killing shit right there.
We have a guy up here called Rip Riley, and he's a big dude. He's like 135 kilos. He's a big guy, and but we're doing some matches with him and Lucille Brawl. And the whole mantra for the whole thing, and it's become a running joke now with Lucille and I, is like, don't bump Rip. Because it was a tag match. That's right. It was a tag match. Bump the other guy all you want. Don't bump Rip. She's like, why? Is it because look at you and look at him? You would literally have to be slingshot at him to knock him over in real life. So, and for Rip too, because Rip is such a great guy and such a giving guy, he would have bumped his ass off for her. And I'm just like, don't do that. You're a monster. We're calling you the monster, Rip Riley. Please be a monster. If she bumps you, do it a smart way. Like she'll drop kick a leg and your knee will go down. You drop kick another leg, your other knee. Then she can drop kick you. Then bump that. But no big bumps. No one clothesline big bumps because you're too big for that. And it doesn't make sense.
No, definitely not. And I think like it just it comes down to the booking, and also comes down to the wrestlers in there who are able to put on the match and plan it out intelligently. I think for a lot of ways as well.
Yeah, 100%. And the whole thing with Rip though is that he was so nice. He would have just, oh yeah, I'll bump whatever you need me to do. I'll bump for you. Like, stop being nice. Yeah. This is where we don't. This is cool. It's great that you want to do it, and I love you for it, bro. But protect your character.
Yeah, well, that's the thing where like I feel like, you know, if you see Gore and Crackerjack, and when I spoke to Crackerjack, it was like when he came in and started, you know, as Gore's manager, it was like he was saying Gore was going in there, he was bumping around the ring. He's like, I could come in as a veteran where he was like still not a rookie, but someone who was coming up. And Crackerjack would be like, nope, he's not doing that. Nope. Because you see Gore and he's like this big, fucking ripped, intimidating looking fucking beast. So it makes sense that he would not fucking be, you know, getting hurricane around the ring by a 5'4" wrestler. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's been times lately where I wish that with some of the matches I've said, look, don't do that. Don't. That shouldn't happen. But I've let it go because I'm like, they have to learn that this is the way it works, and you know what I mean. You got to stand up for yourself sometimes, and you know that sort of thing. But it like doesn't matter the fact that like I wish I like looking back, I'm like, I wish I'd have said something then. But it's all a learning experience.
I mean, it's all relative. Like when you look back at it, you know, and going, oh, I probably should have said this, but you know, like I think you learn from that as well. And also I think, you know, as a character, and I think even as an individual, like, you know, Rip would probably go, oh yeah, I should probably shouldn't do that on a bigger show, maybe a smaller show. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like you could get away with it, but like a big show. Yeah.
I'm like, Rip, why are you letting that person pick you up in a fireman's carry? You're 135 kilos, 140 kilos. Stop that.
And they're
but it looked really cool. So it does look cool, man. It looks great. But stop doing it, please. Okay.
So tell me about Top Tier. When did
Top Tier? Start of this year, or just not far into this year. It's sort of like it's a very different group to other groups that I've been in or had in the past, where like in the past it was sort of like I was the leader and these were my wrestlers.
Yeah.
I'm in charge and these guys go and do this for me and do that for me. That's not what Top Tier is. Completely different. Like I'd already been managing Mitch for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So when Mitch came back from Farley Dojo and we were ready to keep going again, we were just like, well, why don't we start something like with a group? Because Mitch had been training with Tim Hayden over at Farley as well. So when they came back and they sort of like got together because Tim sort of wanted to start working the shows that we all worked as well.
Yeah.
We'll just have a group. It was we were just like all like this group has to be different. Like because originally I wanted to because we used to have a faction called Next Level, and like Mitch was in that with us as well. And I was just being lazy. I'm like, we'll just call it Next Level and we'll keep going the way we were going for a while. And Tim was just like, well, why don't we just try something different? I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Well, we'll just try a different name because like it's an established name and all of that, but that's none of those guys are in this anymore. This is a totally new thing. So it's like Top Tier is basically just a collection of wrestlers with the same goal. So they all want to be the best. Like Solomon Blackwell, Tim Hayden, Mitch Ryder, all want to be the best that they can be. And if that means eventually that one day they have to fight each other or have to work each other, that happens. It's the way it is. Like I'm just part of the group. I'm just one of the guys. It's just if they need me to do something, I'll do it. If they need like the way it kind of like Tim thought of the name, I designed the logo. Solomon does a lot of the stuff with like sort of themes of stuff that we might want to go into and that sort of stuff. Mitch does a lot of the like the behind the scenes working out what we're going to do with this and that and that. I try and help chase bookings around if we can, like especially like coming into this next year, we really want to start going to like interstate bookings because it's really what the idea of the group is. That we've been underappreciated for the last. We can't really say that now because in Queensland wrestling we kind of are the top tier to sort of steal our own fray because Mitch holds multiple titles now in multiple feds. Any fed that Solomon or Tim booked in, they're usually in one of the top matches because just of what they are. They're very good workers. They are very, very good workers. We just did the PWA, the Queensland leg of the PWA LFG tour, and Tim and Solomon took on the Velocities. They'd only teamed twice, and they well and truly matched the Velocities in a match, which was amazing to see. It was a really good moment for me to see it because it was like finally people are seeing how good these two guys are, and it's been too long that they've been like all of them like, and I say that for those three guys, but really all of Queensland wrestling is the same. They've been good for a long time. It's just they've been caught in that stigma of what people thought or what people think Queensland wrestling is, and it's not what it was. Like they were all very good wrestlers.
What was Queensland wrestling? What was the stigma about it? Because I always ask the question. It's like we hear about Adelaide, we hear about Melbourne, we hear about Sydney, New South Wales, we hear about Tasmania to a certain extent. Why don't we hear very much about Queensland? It's almost like Queensland wrestling is the redheaded stepchild of the professional wrestling business in Australia.
Mate, that's basically what it was. When I first moved up to Queensland, I made the joke with my wife. I was like, why did you move me to like the asshole end of Australian wrestling? Because that's what like Queensland had the worst reputation of like the shows weren't very well produced and some of the workers on it weren't very good. And it was sort of like if they drew 30 people, they thought it was a good night and that sort of thing. It was just like where I came from, and that was Riot City Wrestling. Like we were drawing like 300 to 400, 450 people a night. Do you know what I mean? A show, it was like 300. Like we had to move out of one venue because we just kept selling it out and turning people away. It's like, go to another venue, go that.
That's a good problem.
And when I came, it was a great problem to have. And so we generally get like 200, 250 pre-sales to go into a show. Wow. And I remember when I was up here, the first show I was up here, I was talking to the promoter. I was like, so how many pre-sales did you have? Just like just querying it. He's like, oh no, it was a good one this time. We had like 15. It was like, oh, okay. And I was just like, wow, this is. And the worst part is, like, I sat there and I watched the show and I'm like, there's some really good workers here. There's some really bad workers, but there's some really good workers that it wouldn't take much to really kick it into gear. Yeah. And that's why I sort of like wanted to try and get involved, because originally when I moved up here, I'm like, I'm not going to get involved in wrestling up here because it's just, because I was just like, I'd come from like helping book one of the best, like in my opinion, one of the best feds in the country in Rider City Wrestling. Yeah. And I'm like, it's like I was serving a penance coming up here. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then when I saw the guys, I'm like, and some of them were just so passionate about wanting to get good and wanting to like get better and wanted to be on better shows and wanted to make shows better, that it made me just go, no, I want to try and help these guys, because they, like, a lot of these guys really, really deserve it. And in the last 2 years or so, even with the pandemic, like you've had Bobby Bishop and Lucille Brawl open up 3 Count Academy, the training like center here. And Mark Davis was helping train these guys, even through a pandemic when they were getting together and training. And Mark really, really helping there's a whole crop of guys that have come up through that now that are really good. And they're all like getting really good at the same time, which makes it even better to see. And then you've got guys like Mitch and Tim who would go over to Farley Dojo, and anytime there was an EPW like super camp, they'd go over to that as well, and they'd train over there. Any chance they get, if they were in Sydney for a while, they would drop into the PWA Academy and try and train for a week or however long they were down there. Or if they're in Adelaide, the Wrestle Rampage Dojo with AJ Istria, they go down and train down there. They were just like all of them wanting to get as good as they possibly can. And it's sort of like, at the moment, I feel anyway, a perfect storm of workers here where they're all really, really good. Like at the moment, one of the guys, Yeet Stevens, is actually over at the Rhodes Academy.
Oh, really?
America. So yeah, he'll be back soon, I think. So I'm really interested to see how he's improved, because that dude's like 6'4", 6'5", like naturally built like a brick shit house. Wow. And he was already really good before he left. I'm really wanting to see how he's improved on his time over there and what he can bring back. Now that's a good thing. Anytime anyone goes to any of these schools, they come back and they go, this is what I learned here. And they're all just working together and helping each other improve. And that shit makes me want to keep working, want to keep helping 100%, push this even further. Just seeing the stuff that Bobby and Lucille have done, like at PWA, getting into there and like training. And it's one of those things where, like, anytime I think, I might wrap it up soon, I've pretty much had it. I see all these guys working really hard, and even with like Wide Bay going up there and like helping the crew up there turn that around, it just in making it a place where now people, like, I get messages all the time from people around the country going, I'd really love to come, and I've seen some of your shows on YouTube, I'd really love to come and work your show. And that, like, for Wide Bay 2 years ago, that was never heard of. Yeah. People weren't really doing that because it was Wide Bay, and it was like, no, and Anthony, the owner, will attest, it was a joke, unfortunately, because of just people that were involved in it. Yeah. But it's that has really turned around too, with the help of myself and Bobby and like all the 3 Count guys coming up, and also we've had QWA guys coming down like Bro Day, who are a really, really good tag team as well and deserve to be seen on a bigger level. That's my biggest thing lately. Is like, I'm not pissed off. I'm sort of outraged that when people don't recognize some of these guys as being the best or the next best things coming up. Like, you hear when you talk about like, Cherry Stevens is going to be, and she is, she's a great worker. She's going to be great in the future. And like all these, they always talk about that, and they talk about people from Adelaide and they talk about people from Melbourne. I never hear these guys' names. And I know for a fact, like in my heart of hearts, I know if a Mitch Ryder, if a Tim Hayden, if a Solomon Blackwell, if a Bro Day, if a Yeet Stevens, if a Bobby Bishop were on any of these shows, like an MCW or Renegades, a PWA, they would not be out of place at all. In fact, they would probably be like one of the better workers on that card because of how good they are now. And just, it frustrates me that they're not getting that chance. It really does. And I know it's a fact that like there's a lot of talent now around the country and all of that stuff, but They just need the opportunity. And that's the most frustrating thing at the moment. That's the only way I can describe it, is it's just frustrating because I know how good these people are. I see them training. I see them on shows working hard. I see them at Pro Wrestling League, like putting on great matches in front of like a good 300, 250, 300 people. I can see that they can do it. And I wish people from around the country could see that as well and give them that chance and go and be those ones that I don't even care if they want to take credit. Go, yeah, we discovered Mitch Ryder. Do it. Yeah. I don't give a shit. It makes Mitch better. It makes Solomon better. It makes Tim better. That's the whole idea of it. The whole idea is to like raise up these guys, and these guys will come here and raise everyone else up as well. That's the whole idea of the whole thing. And I really hope that, especially like next year, that we can get into some interstate promotions and really like make a mark where people realize that these Queensland guys are for real. That's not that they are like the PWA guys when they came up for this LFG tour. Like, you guys are a lot better than what we thought it was going to be when we first came up. Like, we've had a few other guys up, like Mick Mority's come up to train, and Ryan, you know what I mean? All these guys have come up and helped train and all that sort of stuff. But seeing people on show is a totally different animal. Like seeing like Outback Adams' character on a show is a totally different thing. Seeing Bobby Bishop wrestle is all of these guys, like there's two other guys, Roberto Pacino and James Yeager, young guys too, that are coming into their own and starting to work out what their characters are and work out their in-ring and all of that. So it's great to see. And it's just, at the moment, it's frustrating for me to see them hitting this ceiling and not being able to break through into other venues. Like, we've had, luckily, a couple of the guys like Tim and Solomon have both worked. Well, Solomon's about to work Wrestle Rampage this weekend, and Tim's worked it not too long ago. So that is starting, and that's with the help of AJ Istria helping them as well. But it's like, I just want to get them. I want all these guys to be seen everywhere, like, and not just the guys that I work with, not just like top tier. I want to see all of the Queensland wrestlers. Like, I want my problem to be as a booker up here. Shit, I can't use this guy this month because he's over in Adelaide. Yeah, it's like that's a problem I would love. Shit, I can't use him. He's booked in Melbourne.
But, okay, like, how did you find the PWA shows when they went up there? To, like, do you think that it was a massive like benefit for you guys? Because the shows weren't streamed, but they were live. Like, how were the crowds? And you know, was it something that gave an injection into Queensland wrestling?
Oh, like just like PWA's help over the last, like, not too long ago, or the last like journey with like the 3 Count Academy, like Bonza and that, they've really helped those guys. Like Bonza and Robbie Eagles, they all did like the bus up to Queensland, right? They did a full trip on the full drive on the bus. Robbie and Jack both got off the bus, I think got changed and did a training seminar straight away off that bus to help like with the guys. It's just like having them help has been like an immeasurable like difference for them as well, because these guys up here can see that there is a hope. People are taking an interest in us, and that was the biggest thing. The biggest thing is like, and a lot of people go, "Oh, you guys feel like it really feels like you guys have a grudge." I guess no, it's not that. We feel like the rest of the country has a grudge against us and hasn't been giving us a chance to show how hard that they've been working, because they do. They work so very hard. I don't know. I'm really hammering this point. It's because I'm passionate about how hard these guys work, and I just want to see them all succeed. I want to see them all succeed so much it's not funny.
Do you feel like the attention now, like following like the PWA LFG tour shows in Queensland, that Queensland wrestling is being taken more seriously now?
I think it's being taken more seriously than it has been for a long, long time. I think we still have a lot further to go. I think, like, just the amount of growth I can see in these guys in the last like year and a half, 2 years, I can tell the next year and a half to 2 years is going to be amazing if they all keep progressing at the rate they are. Yeah. And a lot of that was due to Mark Davis training them, like coming up and training, because he was stuck in Australia. He couldn't go and work for New Japan. He couldn't go and work in London. He couldn't go and work for AEW or anything because they were stuck. It was a pandemic. So he helped train with all these guys and like continues to stay in touch with them and sort of mentors a lot of them, which is that's another thing that's amazing chance that all these guys have that I don't know a lot of them even realize how amazing a chance it is that you've got someone like Mark that will critique and help and guide and give advice because he's doing what everyone wants to be doing at the moment.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, you look at people like Australians now over in AEW, WWE, New Japan, whereas like back when we were probably kids, like, and as wrestling fans as a kid, say I'm going to be a WWF superstar. That dream was out of reach for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like
until Buddy Murphy or Matt Silver, nobody really thought that was going to happen. And then the door sort of like opened a bit, and then Rhea Ripley and Indy Hartwell and do you know what I mean? All like Evie, all of these people have started going over there, and now it's become more of an attainable goal. And sure, we've seen some of the guys go over there and it didn't quite work out, but they found somewhere else. Like Shane Hayes, it didn't quite work out in WWE and NXT, but now killing it over in New Japan and TMDK with Jonah, and you know what I mean. And Mikey Nichols, who like can still work New Japan in that, but finds his home in Perth because that's where he loves it and that's where he wants to help build the local product there as well. It's stuff like Robbie Eagles could easily base himself over in America or in Europe or something like that and get 1,000 bookings everywhere if he wanted to and still work New Japan. He chooses to stay in Australia and fly to Japan to do that stuff because he wants to grow the local scene. He wants to grow the Australian wrestling scene, and that stuff and those guys. It's stuff that back in the day you never really saw, because if somebody got signed and went to WWE or got signed and went somewhere else, went, see you later.
Exactly. Right.
That was, you just say all these guys now are sort of like, no, like I'm going, but come with me.
Yeah.
And it's great to see.
Come to the journey, or like keep in touch and say, hey, this is what I'm learning in NXT. This is what I'm learning from a match against Will Ospreay, or this is what, you know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff is invaluable. And I think that, even getting feedback from those people who are getting trained or working these top level name people across the world, it's like that feedback is like these people are now being elevated. So the feedback they give you when they watch your match, your promo, vignette, whatever it may be, is going to benefit.
Well, on the LFG tour, just as an example, the first show was the Gold Coast show, which pretty much had a good mix of the guys from up here and the PWA guys. Robbie sat in a sort of a position where he could watch every match. He watched every match up to his match. So he watched the whole show and gave critiques to all the guys and girls that worked that show. And has even since then reached out to a couple of the guys up here and said, hi, I'm Robbie. If you need any advice, if you need anything, please message me. I want to help you guys as much because I can see the potential, which is amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that stuff, like my respect for Robbie Eagles is like unending because of the way he wants to help people.
And just his passion for the Australian wrestling scene as well, right? Yeah. Like I had him on the show the other night, and it was like everything that we could have talked about, majority of it was around Australian wrestling, and like just see how he lights up around it as well is just like
he could have easily just went, I'm just going to push myself and make my career as big as I possibly can. And I'm just going to devote everything into me and getting myself but that's not Robbie. Robbie is just like, I want to get Australian wrestling as big as it possibly can. And if I can do that by getting bigger in Japan and bigger in America, maybe, that's great too. I don't care. I just want the Australian scene to be. He wants to be able to say to Japan one day, I won't do that tour. I've got a massive tour going on in Australia at the moment. And so, do you know what I mean? I think that's what his like end goal is.
Yeah, man. I think as well, because like you got to like, even you think like NXT, right? And you see people getting signed and going over there. And for the longest time, it was like, okay, people get signed and then they get released where they didn't really get an opportunity to shine or shit the bed. And it's like, you know what I mean? When you relocate, like take Jonah and Steph DeLander, for example, they go over there, they relocate, their whole lives, they uproot themselves, go and live abroad, get themselves established, get homes and all this sort of stuff while they're there. And then 6 months later or 8 months later, here's your release. Like that's a rough,
Yeah.
like I think 8 months is pretty, like, you're not giving people an opportunity to succeed or fail.
Yeah, well, see, but that old regime, that was their thing. They were saying they were bringing people in. You've got 6 months. If we can't see something, then we're going to let you go. That was what the old regime is. Now that Paul Levesque's taken over, I think it's a totally different kettle of fish. I think like if Paul Levesque had taken over maybe 2 or 3 months earlier or 6 months earlier, I don't think you would have seen Jonah get released. And if he was already released then, I can't remember how long he's been released. I think he probably would have got signed back pretty quickly as well. It's just that now he's signed with Japan, or I think he is anyway. That maybe that's not a thing. I think you wouldn't have seen him get released at all, and you wouldn't have seen him. Do you know what I mean? I think they had a lot. I think Levesque had a lot of stock in him.
Yeah, he did. Like, but it's funny because he looks like such a massive unit, and I didn't realize his height. Like I think he's like 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that. I thought he was like 6'5".
I think he's nearly 6 foot.
Oh, really?
Okay. I think he's nearly 6. I'm trying to remember standing next to him. I think he's a little bit taller than me, and I'm about 5'10", 5'11". So
yeah, right. Fair enough. Yeah, I thought he was.
But he's he's as wide as he is tall. He's a big dude. He's just a massive human. Yeah,
great worker too, and hopefully he does make his way. If he wants to go back there, I think it's up to him now. Where, like, he's established enough of a name, and I think his work in WWE and NXT was really, really good. I don't think.
So that's the beauty of it now. Is that like you don't necessarily have to get signed at WWE to make it. You don't necessarily have to sign with AEW to make it. Like you could live off doing like the Japan tours and then like independent dates in America to make up for, or to because a lot of places like if you got some spots with GCW, that helps your independent bookings as well because you're seen as. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be. Yeah, it's not like it used to be where like you have to do a run with E or NXT to get your name out there, or AEW either to get your name out there. You can do that now at New Japan and say you're like, oh, I sort of want to base myself in America. Japan go, oh, we've got New Japan Strong. Do you want to go and do that for a while? It's like that now. So it's good to see. It's a lot more chance. It's a lot wider net you can cast now to become a professional wrestler, a full-time living as a professional wrestler if you wanted to, and if you're good enough.
And if you're prepared to grind out, it's a grind and a half, man. Like so many wrestlers just, go over and, spend so much time trying to go over there and network and work their asses off, man. Like Shazza McKenzie is just like, I think she's back over in the US, and she's like, this is like her second trip in this year, and she's just out there grinding her ass off, getting a name out, networking and stuff like that. And it's like that never give up attitude. You got to applaud that to a certain extent.
Yeah, you do. And it's also the thing that sometimes it's not meant to be. So you just have to try and make the best of what you want to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't go thinking you're a failure if you're not signed.
No, absolutely.
Because it's not. It's just happens to be what they want at the time. Maybe that week they want bodybuilder types, and you're not a bodybuilder type, but you're a hell of a worker. Sorry, it's not what we're really looking for at the moment.
Yeah, it's not what we need.
What I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. But it is that time of the show for 60 Seconds with Piers. For all of us joining for the first time on all of the podcast platforms or YouTube, how this is going to work. I'm going to fire a bunch of questions at Todd. He's got 60 seconds to answer as many as he can. Todd, are you ready to get the clock started?
Why not? Let's go for it.
Okay. Name a gross meal combination that you love that no one else does.
Milk and Coke.
What is something that you really love to enjoy, but you're embarrassed to admit that you like? Almost like a guilty pleasure.
Old school Memphis wrestling.
Nice.
The really hokey shit.
Oh, okay. Would you rather own your own boat or own your own plane?
Plane.
What is the shittest gift you have ever received?
I got a book from my nan, and when I opened it up, the inscription on the inside was liquid papered out, and my name was put in the place.
That's gold. Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
If you were to release an album, what genre of music would it be?
Oh, geez, that's a good one. Acoustic. Yeah.
Which wrestler would you love to go out drinking with from anywhere around the world?
Arn Anderson. Just because I want to talk to him. I love Arn.
What TV series can you watch over and over again?
Jeez. What was it that I just watched again for like the 15th? Oh, there's like Newsroom or West Wing or Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Nice.
They're all like Sorkin shows. I love Aaron Sorkin.
Nice. One has to go: Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter?
Do you know what? I don't like any of them. They can all fuck off as far as I'm concerned.
Done. And last one, in 5 minutes' time, you are being shipped out of space. What two personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
Jesus. I guess I've got an iPad that's completely loaded up with wrestling.
Yeah.
So I'd probably take that.
Yeah.
And it would have to be like an iPod or an iPad, like an iPod or something that's got like a shitload of music in it, because I need stimulation. I could not have that. I could not have that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. That has been 60 Seconds with Piers, with Todd Eastman. Todd, thank you so much for being on the show. This has gone an hour and 20 minutes. Honestly, it's just flown by. I think we need to do a part 2 down the line somewhere, because I think this conversation has been great. Thank you so much for giving up your time on a Thursday evening to come and bullshit with me for a little bit on your evening.
Oh, it's my pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. Todd, where can everyone find you on social media, and do you have any merch available?
Our merch is at Redbubble, just like Wrestle Radio Australia. Anything you buy that's Wrestle Radio Australia, like merch, like shirts and all that shit, all the profits of that we don't have on the show. We just take them, we send them to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, which are two charities that support men's health, mental health, which is a real big theme with the show, because we didn't cover it tonight, but we lost Josh Armour, who was my co-creator of Wrestle Radio Australia, to mental health. Unfortunately, he took his own life. 4 years ago, I think now. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest with you. So ever since then, anything that we get from Wrestle Radio Australia goes straight into trying to stop people from trying to do that to themselves, because it's a passion thing for me now, is to just try and stop this from happening to anyone else, because it ripped my heart out. It ripped a lot of people's hearts out when that happened. So there's that. On like Facebook, Twitter, Instagrams, Wrestle Radio Australia, Wrestle Radio AU, I think it is, at Wrestle Radio AU. I am at Beast Eastman on Twitter and at Todd Eastman _BME on Instagram. Wrestle Radio Australia, the podcast. I haven't been doing interviews as much, but we're going to be doing it again soon. Just going to line them up, sort of thing. At the moment, we basically do a lot of them. We call making chicken salad. It's making the whole saying, making chicken salad out of chicken shit, where we get together and we talk. We review shows. It's myself, Lachlan Albert, and Jeff Setti from WrestleBrania. It's the trivia show that's been on all like the fringe festivals and the comedy festivals around the country. The best show for that. He was just at PAX a couple of weekends ago. They had like 400 people in the auditorium for that. So a really funny guy, a real good,
Nice.
a good hang. So it's great to sit around and chat with Jeff and Lachlan. And we just review the shows. And lately we've been starting to review the Australian wrestling shows as well. We just reviewed Let's Fucking Go, the PWA show from last weekend. I think this week coming up, we're going to start reviewing the last 2 Riot City wrestling shows. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were called, but there was part 1 and part 2. So we're going to watch them and review them as well. We also review all the AEW, WWE, those premium live events, pay-per-views, whatever you want to call them nowadays, the whole sort of thing and all that. But basically, we just try and get the word out about Australian wrestling around the country.
Man, keep doing your thing, man. Again, you guys do some great work. You put out some amazing content. Again, thank you so much for being on, Todd. I really appreciate you being on.
Thanks, mate. It was a pleasure.
No worries. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon. Peace.